Hello, welcome to Free Will, Science, and Religion. I'm Chandler Klebs, and I'm here with Derek Smeltzer and George Ortega. And in our last episode, we were talking about our lack of free will in the religious context, but now we want to talk about it from a scientific context in physics and all that we know of the natural world. And this will appeal more to the secular people who don't necessarily believe in a God, but understand the impossibility of free will.
Excellent. You want me to start it, or basically, from a physical standpoint, um, causality, the law of cause and effect, makes free will impossible. Derek, you want to go into a bit more detail in terms of what causality is and how it prohibits free will?
Yeah, sure. Well, causality, I do want to make it clear that there's these things on the scale of life, in reality, the way things work, there's causality, and a very simple example of causality, very crude form. Sorry, I don't know crude form, but a simple example: 2 + 2 = 4. It's a causal event. You can write down 3, you can write down 5, but it's not right. You can wish it was 8, you can hope it was 8. It's not 8. It's 4 every time. And I think a more complex example of causality and process would be, like you flipping a coin. So like you flip a coin, you don't necessarily know what side it's going to land on, but we can know um, scientifically, we can know that there's forces acting on this coin. There's the mass of the coin. There's the position of your hand, the force applied to the coin. And if we did actually understand to the T all of these factors being applied to the coin, then yeah, the coin flip, we would be able to understand what side it lands on before it even lands on the ground. And that would be causality. And a psychology in a situation gets even more complex than the coin flip, but I don't personally think it's fundamentally different than the coin flip. If somebody would want to take over from here for a little bit, but I would like to get your guys' opinions on that, because I think it's essentially the same thing. Like, we're the coin in the situation, and all these, while there is a lot more factors being applied to us in life and in a unit of time or whatever, it's essentially the same thing as just a physical event in the universe.
Okay, and actually, yeah, that's how I like to describe it. In other words, like, um, our knowledge of the universe begins with the Big Bang, with this event. The universe apparently expanded from this event. And so, like, basically you have the Big Bang causing the second moment of the universe. The state of the universe at the second moment of its existence was completely caused by this Big Bang event. And then, so what caused the third state of the universe, the universe of the state at the third moment? Well, obviously, it had to have been the universe at the second moment, the laws of nature, all that, and then, like, most fundamentally, the Big Bang. So here's the thing. So if you start with this causal chain of events that starts with the Big Bang and includes the entire universe, then we have to recognize that this causal chain of events that's governing the entire universe has to also be governing anything that happens within the universe. Otherwise, we'd be saying that, like, that some things that happen, are outside of this causal progression. Chandler, how's that sound?
Yeah, it's interesting because whatever happens has to flow from prior causes. You would think. I mean, makes the most sense to me. That's why I'm a determinist. But even people think that by refuting determinism, by saying, well, some things just pop into existence out of nothing, well, that doesn't really help, because still, like that's like saying, well, the coin was flipped for no reason, but it still would have had to go according to the laws of physics, and the coin itself did not make a choice either way.
Right. So basically, we're saying that, like, some people may try to use quantum mechanics or a certain kind of logic to say, well, perhaps not everything is caused. And although that seems, incoherent to my reasoning, even if we were to grant them that, then that would just like mean that certain things are not cause, which, according to logic, if something is not caused, there's no way then you can attribute whatever that is to a human being or human will. So,
Exactly.
okay. Actually, I want to like explore. Are you guys familiar with this guy John Searle's quote? He was interviewed in a book by Susan Blackmore on consciousness, and basically he said, I'm quoting, "For free will to be understood as an illusion would be, quote, a bigger revolution in human thought than Einstein or Copernicus or Galileo or Newton or Darwin." Guys, why do you think he said that? Why do you think this,
Oh,
our world accepting and understanding that free will is an illusion would be the biggest scientific achievement ever?
I would love to just give a simple answer to that. If you want to add anything, please feel free. But I just think understanding that the universe is causal, and understanding that we don't have free will is sort of like a foundation block to understanding everything else, I guess. Like understanding that logically the way things work in the universe is extremely important. And if you can't build a building on a solid foundation like that, then your structure is going to fall down. Your logic is going to fall down, basically. I just think it's very important.
Excellent.
It's one of the first things.
Yeah,
Chandler?
yeah. Well, first of all, it really is a bigger revolution than any other type of revolution that's happened in our thinking. Because, it's one thing to understand that, the Earth is round instead of flat, or that it's the Earth going around the sun rather than the sun going around the Earth. And sure, it's cool to know that we evolved from other animals, and that humans are, descendants of some other primate or whatever, but it doesn't affect our day-to-day lives. But this whole understanding that everything has a cause, and that even what we're going to do in a way, it's predetermined by the prior causes. I mean, that's freaky, because what this has done for me in my life is everything I do, I think, why did I do that? What is the prior cause that led to me doing that? And this actually modifies my behavior, because if I do this because I remember somebody saying that I should do this or whatever, then all of a sudden, like, well, I need to know whether the reasoning behind my decision is true. And then if I find out that something I'm doing is based on something false, well, I automatically no longer do it, because it makes no sense to do things based on false information. So it all comes down to that the truth is very important and automatically helps us make better decisions.
Just quick interjection after that. I just want to say that's a really good point. And yeah. Basically, describing reality for what it is important. Understanding the truth of our universe and the nature of it, like you were saying, is extremely important as well. And basically, like as you were saying again, I just wanted to reiterate the whole making better choices, being more informed of how the way things work, and you can modify your behavior to because you want to actually understand this is the reality of the situation. I can think ahead and what affects this and the reaction of this, and I just really like that point. I just want to say, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and so let's apply this, again, more sociologically. We have people in the world who do things that aren't socially acceptable, that aren't for the benefit of that aren't moral, whatever, that just like, aren't what we want people to do. And so here's the problem, like with the free will belief, our society, our criminal justice system, our education system, because like, they should know better, but they don't. Our media, they ascribe free will to these people. And what happens when they do that? All of a sudden, like, well, somebody committed a crime because of their free will, and like those of us who didn't commit the crime, it's because like we knew better and stuff. Like, but if you apply that kind of understanding to the problems in our world, to why people do some things that we would consider wrong or undesirable, then what happens is you never get at the root causes. In other words, like, the explanation, he did it of his free will, he's evil, he's bad and stuff, it stops there, and you never understand, well, because the person was maybe raised in a certain way by certain parents in a certain culture, because the person maybe had, a genetic, whatever. So in other words, like, this free will belief just basically prevents us from finding the root causes of so many problems in the world.
Exactly, because it causes you to just treat the symptoms of the disease, but not get to the causes and preventing or curing the disease.
All right, so let's get back to the causality. Derek, why do you think it's so difficult for even academics? Like, over 50% of academic philosophers with PhDs, they're what is referred to as compatibilists, in the sense that, like, they'll admit, or they seem to admit that causality, determinism governs the universe. They're not denying that, but they still conclude that we have a free will. How do these academics, these PhDs, not get how completely causality makes free will impossible?
Well, simply put, I don't know if you would want a better answer than this, but I just think there's basically, sort of a certain mechanism within your ego to kind of protect yourself and to make yourself, feel special, like you're actually doing the one, choosing or deciding in the situation, like, that there's something in your body piloting your body, in a situation, as opposed to you are a body with a consciousness and you're looking out the window at basically what your body's doing. And I feel like a lot of people not wanting to accept it, that are kind of halfway there, are just kind of in a way just scared to feel, I guess, powerless in the universe, to feel, like you were saying earlier, like you've previously stated, like a puppet, I guess. But I mean, even if we are puppets, it's honestly one of the most exciting puppet shows I've ever seen. I don't like puppets. That's the thing.
Oh, dude,
So,
I'm going to have to quote you on that one. It's the most exciting puppet show I've ever seen.
No, it's true, because, like, how many of us, for example, have seen movies, and let's say we've seen it more than once, and it's a great movie, and we know it's going to happen, and we still enjoy it, but this is even better, because, like, this is, like, fine, everything's predetermined, but absolutely none of us has any kind of, like, absolute knowledge of what's going to happen in the future. So, like, the wonder of reality, continues, in full effect.
Yeah, I mean, come on. Who has ever refused to watch a movie because the movie is already pre-written, pre-recorded, pre-made, and so they don't watch the movie? I mean, that's stupid.
All right, so Chandler, Derek was referring to kind of like, our ego. Basically, these academics, they've worked for 8 years or however long to get their PhDs. They feel that they've earned this kind of quote unquote superiority. And so, like, somehow, if if they were to acknowledge that it wasn't up to them, it would kind of like diminish that. Can you think of other reasons why these academics just are unable to either understand or accept this basic, simple concept of causality and how it makes free will impossible?
Well, you know what? Yeah, I mean, I think the ego thing is a big part of it, because people are raised to feel, that they're responsible for how their life goes, because people have been, they teach that. But yeah, so that's part of it. But I think people just aren't that deep. They aren't deep enough to explain, like, what I've explained before about, like, well, you aren't responsible for all of the things that happened prior to your birth or prior to your conception, even, that made you do what you're doing today. I think what happens is, we understand the infinite causal regression, that things go back and back and back and they never stop. But for most people, they're not thinking about that. All they're thinking is like, oh, well, this person, they scratched my car, or, well, this person did this, whatever thing it might be. They called me a name that I don't like, and so, like, they're all caught up in minor things like that, but they're not looking about understanding why this person did that or why this happened. It's like
Exactly.
they don't want to know why because they want to be mad.
Right. Well, I'm gonna like posit a slightly kind of like an explanation that's similar to that in the sense that they don't explore it deeply enough. But for example, the three of us, we understand how causality makes free will impossible because I think relative to a lot of people, we developed or were born with stronger critical analysis skills. This is basic logic. Some of us, and that's I think where the problem is. In other words, our whole education system is about learning information and then remembering the information and then retrieving it, so you'll do well on tests. Then, like for these academics, teaching it, and sometimes, like in the sciences, applying it. All right. So these academics, our whole academic system is really geared toward that kind of learning, but apparently, and very apparently, just using this free will question as the rationale, a lot of people get through the education system without learning how to think. In other words, like so many academics, they know how to learn, but they don't understand, fully enough what they're learning.
Yeah, and I think that there's causes, obviously cause for everything, but there have been certain causes that have led us to be more critical thinkers and to where we understand things instead of just remembering them and then recalling them for tests. And I know that for my life, my poor memory has a lot to do with it.
Right. Okay. So let's see. And there may be other reasons why the academics don't get it. But let's pull it back now again to the basic reason why free will is impossible physically. Let me think. All right. So some people will cite quantum mechanics. Derek, are you familiar with that? You want to like explain the basic,
I'm briefly familiar with it. This is the whole quantum mechanics. I've heard it so many times in my everyday life. I'm out and about. I'm talking about free will. Not that I'm that guy that's all I talk about or anything, but when I do talk about it, some guy in the room has to bring up quantum mechanics and how he thinks it somehow refutes, not having free will or something. But no, all quantum mechanics, all this quantum mechanics, nonsense is basically saying that it adds some sort of chaos element to our reality, to our universe. The subatomic particles, they're moving around and we can't predict the way they're moving. They're not moving because of, like you were saying, causality, the way the universe works. There's no cause and effect, I guess. What is this?
Heisenberg uncertainty?
Yeah, the Heisenberg uncertainty. I'm not much. I'm not that familiar with it, but I'm just saying about the whole. God, I lost my.
Yeah, actually, let's just deal with that briefly. Basically, what Heisenberg discovered, I think sometime in 1927 or something, is like basically you can either measure the position of a particle or the momentum, which is the direction and velocity, with some kind of accuracy, but you can't measure both accurately at once. And most people don't understand how this makes sense. In other words, like let's say you have a photon measuring an electron, right? Now these, if you want to measure the speed, for example, of a baseball or of a planet, you fire a photon at it, and like the photon is not going to affect the behavior of the baseball or the planet because these objects are way too large. But at the quantum scale, you fire a photon and an electron, and if you're going for the position of the electron, fine, the photon bounces off a bit, but as it bounces off, it changes the momentum of the electron. So that's why in that case you can like fire an electron and get its position, but you can't get its momentum. And like, all right, the other part of this is like, let's say you fire what's known as a low energy, long wavelength a photon that's actually going to, interact in a certain sense with the electron, but it can't pinpoint it because it's got a very long wavelength. So like with the long wavelength, it'll be able to determine the momentum or the direction and velocity of the electron. But because of the long wavelength, it won't be able to find out exactly what it is. So this is like physical. There's no mystery in this. Somehow the quantum mechanical theorists just like, I think basically they were trying to find a way to defend free will, but like, as we understand now, even what they posit doesn't defend free will.
Even like what you were saying earlier. Oh my God, dude! I need my cup of coffee today. Even what you were saying earlier. I completely forgot what I was going to say.
Was it about like the randomness or?
Yeah, it's about randomness, exactly. Even if giving these the Heisenberg uncertainty, the quantum physics, giving them the randomness, we'll give it to them. Just, you know what I mean? Even if it doesn't exist, here you go, here it is. There's randomness in the universe. Here's chaos in the universe. This still doesn't give us freedom. There's no freedom in chaos. So I don't understand. Just a really simple rebuttal of the whole quantum physics, Heisenberg uncertainty. I don't really understand how it affects the argument at all, honestly, because it seems so simple to me that there's no freedom in process and in cause and effect. And even if we do give them this randomness, this chaos, there's no freedom in the chaos regardless. So it doesn't really prove, it doesn't prove us wrong. It doesn't prove that free will exists, because it's a completely different subject almost.
Yeah, as I want to give an example. Now, let's suppose that there was this randomness, which I think is absurd anyway. But okay, let's suppose that there's a person who's grown up and being taught French, and they're speaking French, okay? But then a quantum randomness event randomly happens for no reason and causes them to speak Spanish, okay? However, that doesn't help us any because I want to be able to change their brain to speak English so I know what they're saying.
Yeah, Chandler, and it's beyond that. It's, in other words, just conceptually something. I mean, the problem is also like in terms of language. Random has several different meanings. Like, for example, if you have a deck of cards, you present them to someone, pick a card out at random. Basically, what you're saying is pick one out without actually just thinking about it. Just pick one out, quote unquote, at random. But like the way that people try to use the word randomness to defend free will is in a much stronger sense, because again, they're using it to try to say that not everything is causal, that there's, some things happen without a cause. So it's this stronger sense of randomness. And think about it. I mean, like, what does it actually mean for something to have a cause? I think the concept is incoherent. Like, how could, the best, I think the best physics could ever demonstrate to us through experiments and all is that something's happening, like radioactive decay is something that they generally refer to, or something. Fine, we don't know the exact mechanisms that's causing a single radioactive isotope to decay whenever it does and all. But it's lack of knowledge. I think their mistake is like by concluding that if we don't know what's going on at the quantum level, then possibly it's not cause. And again, there's no logic in that.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. We have all the knowledge. We have more than enough knowledge currently to deduce that there's no free will. I mean, it's simple logic, simple common sense makes you realize that there's no free will. I mean, just in reality, like, I'm sorry to reiterate, I just can't say it enough that, this is the spectrum, this is the scale. On one side you have process, and on the other side you have chaos. And even if there's a mixture between these things, there's no freedom in either one of these sides of the scale. So I don't understand where this magical, freedom element's coming from. So yeah.
Yeah, and guys, this is just aside from the whole free will topic, the idea that people truly believe in randomness of things, the kind of having no cause, that bothers me. Like, I don't know what it is with that, but that bothers me. Because it just seems so absurd, so illogical. And even though, even people who don't get that free will is totally false, it hurts them to believe in randomness, because that means they won't be looking for the causes of what happens as much.
Oh, I agree. Totally. Yeah. No, in everyday life, I guarantee, even if there is some sort of randomness, 99.9999% of circumstances and situations in your everyday life, like you personally, me personally, my neighbor, whoever, it is natural mechanics, cause and effect with the things happening in their life. So to think that something's random is actually pretty detrimental to, growing as a human being, becoming intelligent, understanding that, yeah, the more I think about the situation, I can make a better choice. And I think it could, ultimately make us better people to understand this concept of, uh, cause and effect, and essentially cause and effect. I mean, randomness and chaos aside, I think cause and effect is just, it's such a simple, concept that I don't know why people don't get it. This is something that I think children should understand, and I think children do kind of understand, but the school system and whatever, I don't know about our society that makes people deviate from, I guess, common sense logic, as opposed to this, this crust that they build up in their heads about, whatever. It's just people get so diluted with all this nonsense that they forget how to think just simple thoughts, and I think it is a simple thought. I don't consider myself that intelligent of a person, to be honest with you, and I still understand like common sense logic about, free will.
So guys, that's our challenge. That's our challenge. You're right. I don't think it's very complicated to understand how causality makes free will impossible. But, all right, there's some research in psychology over the last, I don't know, 10, 20 years that has shown that a lot of people, like in politics and a lot of, social issues and all, they don't believe what they believe based on evidence. They believe what they believe or not believe based on what they need to believe or what they, can't accept. Climate change, I think, is an example. There's a lot of examples. So basically, our challenge is to find a way to package this refutation of free will, this explanation of why they don't have it, in a way that's going to address their fear of just being a puppet, their fear of like being inconsequential, all that stuff. And actually, I mean, like, again, like to us, we see it's amazing. In other words, for us to understand that absolutely nothing is up to us makes reality much, much more amazing than if it was up to us. So basically, that's our challenge, though, to find ways to just allow them to kind of like overcome their emotional whatever that is interfering with their logic and reasoning.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
You know what? That's what's interesting about that, is that if people had a free will, they would have to be free of emotion, pretty much, because emotions dictate our behavior to such a greater extent beyond anything, any reason, any knowledge. Yeah, our emotions are the top motivator when it comes down to it, and so that keeps you from having a free will right there.
Exactly.
I
Derek,
just wanted to, oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I'm gonna have to go in a minute or two here.
Yeah, absolutely. No, all right. You made a point though, like, we reiterate our points a lot. I mean, like I've done over 180 episodes of a TV show on this, and I'll go over the same theme over and over and over because I think we have to do that. I think people may need to hear the same point 10, 20, 30, 50 times before they'll begin to understand it. And then so like our challenge is to be able to like, present again, like to find out what are the psychological needs that are preventing people from applying this simple common sense logic to this question. Okay, we've got about a minute left. All right, so Chandler, you want to wrap things up?
All right. Okay. Well, you've been listening to Free Will, Science, and Religion. I'm Chandler Klebs, and I've been talking with Derek Smeltzer and George Ortega. This is going really deep, and we're trying to find out why people just aren't getting it. So we'll keep working on it, so we hope to see you in future episodes. Bye.